So hey there, it's me, Nap, and this is a piece that I did for the John Waters art show. This is a scene from a John Waters inspired film that exists only in my head called Toxic Tribades. It's about an artist slash writer, not a young one, mind you, with a head full of hopes and dreams, but rather one who's pushing 40. She's a misanthrope, and while she's not particularly successful in her field, she really isn't good at much else, so she's made her peace and nestled into the sediment at the bottom of the barrel. Oh, is this a biopic, you may ask? Yeah, we'll get to that. So, anyway, our artist, she's encouraged by her long suffering agent to take to the internet and try to build a personal brand for her work. Her agent is convinced that it's that misanthropic streak, that hesitance to get out there and be seen, that's holding her client back. And with a little pushing and prodding, this agent knows she can force her client out of her shell. So, with a resigned sigh and a shrug of her shoulders, our artist builds a website and takes to social media. It's slow going at first, but she enjoys a stable, steady incline in sales, enough to keep her with it. Then, to her surprise, she finds that her work is catching on, nay, going viral. It comes on so fast that she barely has any time to process it and is overwhelmed by the sudden flood of attention. She's approached by an organization which claims to specialize in the representation of up-and-coming talent such as herself. She's relocated to a plush estate which boasts all the latest modern technological advancements. When she questions how she'll be able to afford this lifestyle, she's informed she won't have to. A party of interested investors will be shouldering the costs. All she needs to concern herself with is creating quote-unquote product. Now at first, things seem great. The house is run by an artificial intelligence named Busby, which takes care of her every need. Busby assumes a feminine persona so as to create what she calls a Tension 3 dynamic. Somehow this AI seems aware of all the artist's preferences from food to toiletries and makes them readily available to her. After some time, however, Busby reveals herself to be uncomfortably familiar with personal aspects of the artist's life, such as her past sexual partners or the onset of her menstrual cycle, as well as dark, painful secrets from the artist's past, which she's never shared with anyone. The artist finds herself desperate to uncover who these so-called investors are who placed her here, and how they know the things they do, but how can she discover their secrets when she's constantly being watched? So we're just gonna kind of blast through the line work here. Yeah, because it's really just more or less tracing. That's not super interesting, right? Um, I guess the events inspiring toxic tribates, the little film I came up with in my head, really have to do with the fact that I'm kind of adjusting to what it is to be an artist in today's market. It's all about personal brand. It's all about putting yourself out there online and having a social media and inviting people into your world because you are the representative of the product. You don't have a celebrity spokesperson or something like that. But I've never really been big into socializing. It's just not, something I take a lot of satisfaction from. And that's not to be rude or anything. I'm not out to try and make people feel excluded or unhappy or slighted. It's for me it is a chore. It's something that I have to actually discipline myself to do. And so every video you see, every post online, that usually has been deliberated over for hours or days in some cases. I spent days trying to write the text for this video, and I came up with like this 15-page script that I was like, oh, hell no, we're not going to do that. um, and a lot of it is because when you put yourself out there on social media, you sort of invite the attention of anybody who's willing to look. And you also re-invite people into your life who, social media is a great way for all the people you've been trying to avoid all your life to come back and find you. And yeah. So it gets really nerve-wracking for me because there's a lot of people who feel that they're entitled to my time now because, like, hey, we knew each other in high school, and I looked at your video, or I looked at your Instagram, or I read your blog post. And I used to actually keep a blog religiously, and then I sort of fell out of favor for exactly the same reasons. And if you're following me on Instagram or anything, you'll notice that I have these big dead chunks. And usually I just I get really flustered by people kind of inviting themselves into my life, but at the same time I'm inviting them, and it's difficult for me that is the process now of getting your work noticed. Um, that it's the gallery scene and stuff like that. It's not the way that it used to be. You don't have as much willingness to accept new artists. You don't have as much willingness from galleries and dealers themselves to promote your stuff. They kind of expect you to do it for them because it's so easy for you to do it for them. And well, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's a little scary, I guess. But you know, I I really am dedicated to my craft. I really do want to share my artwork with people. I just don't necessarily want to share all the finer minutia of my life. So that's where my struggle comes in, and I guess that's kind of what inspired the events in this little movie in my mind here. That and Earth Girls Are Easy. And there's that scene, the dream sequence with Valerie, where she her nosy neighbor's looking over the fence with a parabolic dish, and this face here, this is my face, wound up looking a little like Julie Brown from Earth Girls Are Easy, which I'm fine with. I think she's great. um, and then, of course, there's the short films of Tom Rubnitz, who is a consummate inspiration. If you haven't seen any of his work, Google Pickle Surprise on YouTube. You'll be glad you did. It's some pretty awesome stuff there, and very much like that aesthetic. So, yeah, kind of fun. So, right here, I am working on the shading of the face, and just kind of going through right here, and I really do very rough shading in the beginning. And I kind of go through and I test it. At this point I'm really experimental because what I wanted, and I can show you my reference picture, was sort of a extremely dreamy soft filter kind of look. And so I really wanted to go in heavy with the shadows and then kind of cover them up with a soft sort of diffused layer of skin over the top in the flesh tone, the base flesh tone that I chose. And just kind of continue to do that back and forth is sort of what you'll see here. I go back and forth, back and forth. And that is because skin actually is multi-layered in the coloration. You have a lot of blue tones, purple tones you're seeing right there, based on the undertone of the skin. But it's not just, a lot of times you'll see artists sometimes just go in with like a black or a gray, and if you want the skin to have dimension, you can't really do that. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing here, and just cleaning everything up just bit by bit, and it's a really lengthy process. So just kind of have fun with it. You just have to teach yourself to fall in love with the process, which is not always easy to do. I'm just adding in shading, testing it out. Right here I'm kind of adding in more pink and orange tones to the skin, sort of giving the blush of the cheeks and sort of softening out some of the shadows that I thought were too harsh. And just pulling back and forth, Just easing it in little bit by little bit, and really even after I finish this base skin layer, even after I'm happy with it, I tend to go back in and work in other colors that I've been working on throughout the process of painting. Because I might, there we go, we're going to go on to the lips now. I might see a shade somewhere that I'm putting into the dress or the hair, and I want to start incorporating it. And here we have the lips. Now it looks like I'm going really dark on the lips, but you're going to see after I go through, I'm just doing, again, I'm laying down that real dark, heavy layer, and I kind of just soften it up, and kind of go through. That's kind of how I like to work. I sort of started with oil paints, and that with that you a lot of times you lay down your darks first, and then you just kind of blend in. It's sort of the opposite of watercolor or acrylic, though you can do that with acrylic if you want to. And just kind of giving the lips kind of a soft sheen here, just adding that gloss. She's got lipstick on, so she's got to have a little bit of a gloss there. Now that is my face, because this is a deeply personal piece for me. So I was just like, yeah, we'll just make it a self-portrait. And I'm also less likely to sue myself than most people I know. So that's always nice. Yeah, and there we go. I'm just kind of incorporating new colors in there. Right now I think I'm darkening up the eyes and adding in the, yeah, the little, oh, I don't remember what those called. They have a name though. The little pink thing in the corner of the eye. Just adding in some shading on the eye. Eyes are kind of interesting because there is actually quite a lot of shadow and shine that goes into the eyes, and you really have to kind of, to create that rounded shape, you really have to kind of go in a little bit dark and then soften it up and then pull it to the outside, really give it a lot of definition. You wouldn't think it because you just think, look at the eyes and you're just like, oh, you just kind of add the little shine there, but there's quite a bit of reflection. They're a very reflective part of the face. And if you get it wrong, you can make a face look kind of horrifying. Now this face is going to be horrifying anyway because it's mine, but you know, there we go. And yeah, I'm just adding in sort of darkening, putting that, what they call it, a limbal ring when you do around the outside, the dark part of the eye. And not everyone has a limbal ring. But add in that shine to the round part of the eye, highest point, and just kind of toning out that eyelash right there. There we go. Yay! Just kind of quickly putting them in, and you'll see I kind of go back and forth, fill them out, making balance between, and just really duplicating on the other side. A lot of times when I do the actual drawing, I just duplicate the eye, but with the shading, you can't just duplicate it usually because if you're doing more of a cartoon type thing, you can. But if you want it to have a little bit of an air of realism to it, then you gotta, each eye is going to be reflecting light in its unique way based on its position there. So that's fun. Yay! And adding in that lighter layer. Now I have brown eyes, so the picture here has brown eyes. But you still have color dimension in eyes. It's not just flat black. So, and then adding in lashes, matching them up, kind of going through and bouncing back and forth between the eyes, trying to get it to, and I bounce back and forth with my zoom tool, kind of looking at it and deciding if I like what's there. And that's always fun. Oh, the eyebrows. Now there are brushes that you can use to get more of a hair effect. I am more comfortable doing it just bit by bit, and it's really just my personal preference. I've seen people do really nicely with you know, brushes. You can create your own brush in Photoshop. It's really great. So basically I'm just the lower part of the eyebrows obviously going to have darker, and doing sort of the same thing in the hair. I'm choosing right now, I'm choosing the darkest layer, and I put it off, if you see on that blue part, the stove in the background, I chose the darkest layer I was going to use, and I'm kind of just putting my color dots in the background so that I can come back to them when I do the hair, because hair is not just one color. It's if you want to have it bounce and shine, you got to kind of add some colors through. Again, I'm just doing that thing where I go through real rough, real harsh. And now this hairpiece is actually based on a wig. I think it's Las Vegas Wigs. It's advertised as being a drag queen wig, but that's kind of my aesthetic. I'm a bit of a bio queen myself. And then just going through and adding all that shading. Now, hopefully I'm going to be able to put a picture of it on here. But if you look at the picture of the wig, they have much softer curls, and I wanted to create something more cartoony, more architectural, but still have it feel like it was made from real hair, just very stiff and very structured. Just something that was kind of put together. My grandma used to tell me about her hairstyles when she was younger, that they would go to the hairdresser just once a week because they would be so like packed in with hairspray and everything else that they would go to the hairdresser once a week, and you really only washed your hair once a week. And when you gave the excuse, I'm washing my hair instead of going on a date, that was a genuine excuse because it was quite the process. So yeah, and just kind of coloring in, say right here as I give those little curls more of an architectural type shape. Almost like something carved from wood, except it's created from little pin curls of hair, and I'm giving them depth, showing where they twist in, where they're pinned together, just kind of how they're formed right there. And this is quite a long process when you're doing it, and again, it's just teaching yourself to love the process. Finding music that you like to, that always helps. I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, and I find I don't do that as much anymore. I'm starting to find kind of the human voice kind of grating, but there's times where your playlists just exhaust themselves, and you kind of go over to something else. And there we go. That looks nice. And just kind of coloring everything in. And yeah, I do listen to podcasts now and then. Just for the long haul like this, I kind of need something. I honestly, a lot of times, even songs with human vocals will kind of grate on me. I just like instrumental, and that's just a personal preference. That's not anything against anybody. Just gotta make sure everybody feels appreciated. And oh, it's like a little cinnamon bun there. It's cute. So we're just putting in our nice layers of color. Just and so when you see these long pauses here, usually means I'm in the bathroom. So just going through those little curls, and you just really have to be conscious of where your light source is, and that's something you have to decide before you start your painting is where is the light source going to be for your picture. And a lot of times, like when I was in school, they would show people drawing out a grid over the picture on one layer and mapping out where their light source was going to be. And that's good for practice, but after a while, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, but after a while you kind of can eyeball it and put it in there, give it a believable sort of, you also cheat the light a lot. Sometimes the lighting conditions would actually create like a really harsh shadow from the nose or down from the brow bone over the eyes, and depending on the mood that you want to go, you don't necessarily want to replicate that exactly. So you kind of tease it and play with it a little bit. Looks like I'm almost done with that hair. That hair took forever. Oh my god. Are you guys still with me? I guess so if you're listening to this. So that's nice. That's fun. So, but yeah, let me know in the comments if is this something that, are you interested in digital art? Is this something you do? Is this just something you watch to relax? I don't have the most soothing voice. I kind of always sound like I'm angry or bored. I mean, one or the other. It's, yeah, there's no in between. So, and just adding those, yeah, we're fine-tuning it right now. We're making everything look nice and crisp and clean. And, you know, the hair has a lot more dimension now. These little curls off on the side that I added by her parabolic dish. So, and you got to bring those darker tones through the eyebrow, of course, because your eyebrows usually are a little darker than your hair. Pulling that hairline down. I always set the hairline a little higher than I really want it to so I can pull it back through. The hairline is usually not rigid. It's not just one straight line. So, you know, it's like 2:03 in the morning, and where I record is right up at the front of my apartment, so I am hoping that my neighbor's bed is actually in the back of their apartment, because I know when people are up towards the front of the apartment, you can hear everything they say, but just logistically, I can't really set up my recording station anywhere else in the house, and so that's nice. But yeah, adding that shine in, pretty much the same process except with the lighter colors. So I do apologize to my neighbors if they can hear me. I'm hoping they are asleep right now, because this is going to be going on for a little bit longer. Yay! So, oh yeah, there we go. Looking good. Alright, so yeah, that shine just adds a little more dimension to it, just a little more life. And again, helps reinforce what that light source is. And putting the shade in, because obviously the hair would sort of bow out over the forehead. And just dropping that hairline down, dropping that widow's peak down. Of course, it is me, so they do have that fancy Elizabethan forehead, which is nice. Um, I don't know, I like it. When I was a kid, everybody always told me that I needed to have bangs, so I think until like 6th grade, I had like really chunky block bangs across my forehead, which I hated because I sweat a lot, so they never looked cute. They were never like Zoe Deschanel kind of bangs. They were always just like these sweaty, disgusting things that clung to my skin. It was pretty gross, actually, but yeah, had to compensate for the ugliness that nature bestowed upon me. Alright, here I'm using the pen tool to get like a nice clean shadow in there. And I'm just playing with the shadow a little bit, putting kind of a blue shade in there, and drawing it out for the ear, kind of adding some pinks back into the ear, but I still want the ear to be in that blue shade shadow. Now, shadows really tend to be more kind of on the blue or the purple kind of scale if you're using a yellow type light, if you have a yellow or white light coming through. Depending on the light source that you have, it's going to change the color of your shadows. It's yeah, color wheel kind of stuff. Your shadow is always going to be the opposite of the color light that you have coming through. Yeah, and then we're adding that shading in on that parabolic dish, and I don't know, I thought that was kind of fancy, kind of cool. Drawing a lot of inspiration from Earth Girls Are Easy for this. There's a scene in that where Valerie has a dream. Valerie is the lead in Earth Girls Are Easy. She has this dream about after having sex with Whiplock, I think. Oh no, Whiplock is, no. Anyway, Mac is the blue alien, who once shaved turns into Jeff Goldblum. And she has this dream where she's just horrified by the consequences of her having sex with him. And one of the scenes is her nosy neighbor looking over the fence with a parabolic dish. But it wasn't quite like this one. This one's a little more, you know, creepy and weird. Shading up that cleavage, yeah. You gotta shade up the cleavage. So funny story, like last time I did Comic Fest, I was wearing a low-cut shirt because, you know, like, I'll use anything I can to make a sale, right? And sometimes people aren't really there for the art, you know? And a guy came over with his camera, and he's like, "Well, can I get a picture of you for my blog?" And it's like, "Okay, what's your blog called?" "Well, it's like a blog about comic books." I was like, "Good, all right, cool, I guess." And he pretty much stuck the camera like right over my chest and took a picture. And I was like, "Well, okay then. Do you need my name or anything, or?" "No, I think it'll be okay." All right. So I'm hoping that picture's getting good use. I wouldn't say that that is the typical audience at comic book conventions. Far from the stereotype online. I think most people at comic book conventions are usually pretty polite, pretty, you know, they're there to have fun. Right now we're just shading. This is an outfit that I just invented. What I love about the 1950s aesthetic is that they kind of combined the decadence of Rococo with this very kitschy, well, it's kitschy now, but sweet, soft, pastel kind of aesthetic. And I do hate the word aesthetic, but I use a lot. And they combine those two, and so I was kind of trying to go for kind of a Marie Antoinette style hair, kind of those Rococo soft pink kind of colors, but also something a little bit deviant, like a little bit latex, a little bit playful, kind of outfit. Um, and so, which would be very Rococo, but not necessarily very 50s. And then I added a color layer over that because I really wanted more of a bright, vibrant pink. So I actually added a bit of a soft magenta kind of tone in a layer over that and set the opacity very low. And I really just selected the pink coloring from my base color layer and then it filled in on another layer exactly where I wanted it and just set the opacity down. Here we go, and just shading that collar, just giving it a little dimension there, and it looks nicer. You want to show where all the tucks and folds are, and then that part, since it's vinyl, that part would be a little thicker and be a little more, yeah, stuck up in the air. And of course, I mean, it doesn't have to be vinyl. It can be whatever your fantasy wants for it. Well, whatever you desire for it, I suppose. But I was trying to, in my mind, doing sort of a soft vinyl kind of look, soft leather kind of look with the shading and the reflection. Here we go with the gloves. Now the gloves, they look white here compared to the other colors, but that's why you don't ever want to work on a solid white background. And it looked like I was working on a solid white background. It was actually a light gray background. Because your colors compared to everything else, when you have everything filled in, a lot of times it's going to look, a white is going to like too bright. Plus a white you can't really add that much highlight and dimension to. And that's no good. You want to be able to add highlight and dimension, especially since we're going for kind of a latexy, leathery kind of look for these gloves here. And pulling that shade through. And I just like the look of gloves. You know, she's in the kitchen. These are kind of your Playtex gloves with a little twist. Hey, why not? So, and is it moving? Or am I in the bathroom again? I can't. Oh, there we go. Okay. And I really just am going through and deepening all the shadow. Just building and building and building. This is one area, because it's such a light color, that I'm not going too harsh on. But really all the folds and creases I really want to establish, and then sort of just have the color, have the shadow kind of build just little by little. So that's always nice. Yay. And just adding in that shadow, that occlusion is where the shadow, like when between two fingers or with a closed fist, you have your occlusion shadow, which is where no light penetrates. So it's your darkest shade that you're using. And right here, I'm just going to go through and I'm going to add a shadow for that stove to show that that backsplash is farther back. Now this is the face of Busby, the character we talked about earlier. And Busby is the robot who basically is the house. It's a living house. And she really dominates the entire house and controls everything that goes on in there and is always watching. And never really allows our artist, our lead character, to have any kind of freedom or any time to themselves, because they were placed there by somebody else for the purpose of creating artwork for their client, right? So I'm just shading her in and giving her a little bit of texture because she's coming from the brick. Basically, she is the house, so the brick is her. So any surface in the house, she just comes through. And just add a little highlight to the brick where it'd be up and lifted. And the eyes and the nose. Not so much highlight here because we're shadowed, but you still want to give the illusion of brick, of tile back there, pulling a hard shadow. And there we go, just darkened it up a little. I'm playing with the darks and the lights. Sometimes I'll double the layer and see how I like it. And then we got to give a little definition to this hood of the stove here, showing where the light splashes down onto it, showing where the curves and the shaded areas would be. And it's a fairly fast process, this, but you do have to kind of use a pen tool to refine everything, adding the shadow from where the light hits down on the hood. And yeah, just kind of following the line of where the cupboards would be and just tracing that. Now, a lot of times when you see a straight line like that, I can't actually draw a straight line. It's me holding the shift tool down or putting one point and then holding shift and dropping between 2 points. There's a tool called Lazy Nizumi that I guess allows you to do straight lines and perfect curves, and I don't have it because I'm on a Mac. So say what you will about that. If there's any PC master race type people out there, but that's great. I dated one of you one time, and I'm not looking to have any of those conversations ever again. So yeah, there we go. We're just adding that all the shading to the stove. I've always wanted a teal kitchen like this, but I don't ever have time to cook, so. I used to do a cooking blog with my mom, actually. Believe it or not, that was kind of fun. But then we ran out of time and money because we started babysitting my niece every other week, and yeah, just other things took over. Putting on that lighter layer where the stove top rises up, catches more of the light. Just gotta make sure everything's nice and defined. Pretty quick here. Yeah, it looks good. I like that. And just cleaning everything up bit by bit. Again, putting those contours on the stove, putting the shadows from the switches and from all the metallic pieces. And adding a highlight there. And get those dials. You gotta just add because they're not just one uniform piece. They have components, so they have shadows that are cast from each of their little knobbity bits. And I think we're good. There we go. Signature on, and that means it's finished. Alright, thanks guys for watching. Hopefully I wasn't too wordy at the front, and hopefully this was kind of fun for you. So it would mean a whole lot to me if you would maybe go check out my websites, maybe go check out my art and my podcasts and things like that. A comment that I've been hearing is like, you tell us to go check out your art, but you don't even show any art. Well, I showed you some art today, so... And if you think that I was too rambly and ranty at the front and I need help, please, please become a Patreon and help me pay for that help. Because right now, yeah, we're in the middle of a furlough right now, and not to e-big, but you know, I want to sound desperate, but just desperate enough. So yeah, check out my artwork. I do art for kids on Green Carousel. I do art for big kids on Lost Bread Comic, and I also do an audio drama, which is a lot of fun. And then of course there's my Patreon page as well. So yeah, all of those are available to you, and all of those will be in the description box down below. And please leave a comment because it lets me know that you watched. But it also helps me make a better video next time. I'm still kind of new to this game. But okay, talk to you later. Thanks for joining us. Bye.